Hey guys, welcome back. So in the previous video I showed you how to set up the project and how to write this emoji inside the text area. So in this video we will work on the Crude operation, adding the to-do, deleting, updating, and complete the to-do and save that in the local storage. So I just go back to my component, and down here I write a new function, and I'm gonna name that add to do and take this event. Now I write that and on submit in my for. Now inside this function we need to write an object. So I'm gonna write const to do. Inside this object I will have an ID, a text which is my text area, and the time is going to be new date. So when we push a to do, it will show the new date for us. Now let's generate this ID. I just write const ID math.random. Inside it, math.round times this random number. Okay, now if I console log this to do, before I write something in the text area, I need to prevent the default to prevent the auto refresh. Now if I write something, you can see that in the console I have printed this object. Okay, now we need to have an array of to-do list. So for that I make a new user hook, and I'm gonna call that to-do list set to-do list, and the initial value is going to be this empty array. Now all we need to do is just copy this set to-do list, and the way we push the data is inside this set to do, I just write an empty array and take everything inside it using this spread operator and add this to do list. Now if I console log this to do list, you can see it is empty by default, but if I add something, you can see that we have a new object inside. Okay, now I just set the text to empty string. When we click the button, we want the text area to be cleared like this, and also when I click this add, I want this emoji to be closed. So I just write set emoji to false like this. Okay, now let's print this to-do list inside a new component. So down here I write a comment and write a div. Inside this div I will have a to-do component. Now I'm gonna make this component and initialize the React snippet. Now I need to import that inside my to-dos component. Okay, now I need to give a class name to this to-do div. I just write padding top to rim. You can see it has a little padding. And now we need to pass this to-do list and set to-do list to this component. Now I need to receive them in here. Okay, and down here inside this div we need to map through each and every to-do list array. I will get this to-do and this index for the keys. Now inside it I just write a div. Inside this div, the first thing that we need to print is the time. So I just write span, and I import this moment from the moment library, and inside this span I just write moment. I just write moment function, and inside this parentheses I just write to do dot time, and I just write dot from now. And down here I just make a new div. I just write h1 and to do the text. Now let's check. Inside the text area I just add a new text with the emoji. You can see that the text and the time that we have posted this to do is printed over here. Okay, now let's style this to do list component. Now I just give an ID of to do's to this parent div, and I come to index.css and write that to-do's ID over here and give it a display grid, template columns, repeat, auto fit, minimum maximum, 150 pixel and 1 FR. and we need to give it a gap of 0.5. Now for the div inside this map, I just write a class name and give it a background color of to do, a padding 2, and a border radius of medium, a width of 100%, and a height of 100%. Okay, let's check it. Now you can see that we have a different background color. Now let's style this time. I just write a class name, give it a text of extra small, a text slate of 400. Now you can see it has a different style. And for this heading, I just write class name of padding top 3, text size of small. You can see that it is different now. Alright, now if I print a large text, if I copy this text and paste it, you can see that it is a very long text. So what I need to do, we need to cut the text to a few index and display that in a separate component. So what I need to do, I just go back and write to do text.substring, and I want to cut it from index 0 to 36. So it will print only 36 characters inside this box. You can see we have a short text over here. Okay, now we need to have a button to show more. I just write more over here. You can see if I write a large text again, it will be printed with this more button. Okay, but we have a problem. Even though if the text is short or large, this more button is still here. So what do we need to do? I just come back and we need to set a condition. So I just wrap this button with this curly braces and say if this text.length is greater than 36, we want to print this button. Okay, now you can see that this button is displayed from the shorter text. Okay, now let's style this button. I just write a class name, give it a text rate and a text size of extra small. For the hover, I just give it a text rate of 600. You can see that we have a different button over here. Alright, now let's add our icons. So the first icon is going to be delete. I just go to React icons and look for delete icon. I need to import that inside my component. The second one is going to be edit icon, and finally a check icon. Okay, now let's paste them inside this box. So we will have a div first, and inside that we will have a span tag for each and every icon, and paste those icons inside this span tag. Okay, now let's style them. So I give a class name to the div, and I give it a flex item center and justify end. Give it a gap of 1 and padding from top and bottom 2. You can see that they are beside each other. Okay, now let's style each and every icon. I just give a class name for each span tag and give it a cursor pointer, and for the hover I give it a text color of slate 500. Okay, now for this parent div, I just write a class name, a flex column, justify between, and a height of 80%. You can see that the buttons are down here. So even if the text is smaller, the button will always be down here. Okay, now let's store that in the local storage. So I just go back to the to-dos component, and instead of this empty array, I just write JSON parse local storage.get item and this to-do code. So this to-do is just a secret key that will help us have access to the local storage. So we set a condition. If there is something in the local storage, we want to print that. Otherwise, we want to print this empty array. Okay. Now down here, we need to specify a use effect. And inside it, we need to write localStorage.set item. And now we need to pass this secret key to do. And following that, we need to write JSON.stringify and pass this to-do list. Inside this dependency, you need to write this to-do list. Okay. seems we have a problem. The problem is it's not get but get items. I just go back and change that to get item. Okay, now we don't have this problem, and you can see if I refresh the web page, the to-do list are still in there. Okay, and if I check in the storage, you can see we have a new array over here. If I delete them, we won't have any to-do list in the browser anymore. Now let's add a new to-do list with a long text. You can see even if I refresh the page, we still have the to-do list. Okay, now let's implement a separate component for the full text. So I just go back to the text editor, and inside the components folder, I make a new component called layer.jsx. I just ran this React snippet, and down here I write a new div, and to show and hide this div, we need to declare a new useState hook, and I'm gonna name this show text and set show text. The initial value is going to be false by default. Now we set a condition. If there is a show text, then we want to print this new div. Okay, so inside this div we will have a button to close the layer. So I just write a span tag and just paste this icon from React icon, and I'm gonna paste it inside the span tag. Now if I make it true, you can see that we have a new icon over here. Okay, now down this icon I need to have a new div, and inside that I just import my layer. You can see we have both of them in the browser. Now for the div, I gave it a class name, I gave it a position absolute, the inset 0, and gave it a display flex, item center, justify center, and the background color of slate 600. But if you want to add opacity, you can write this slash and 75. Okay, now you can see we have a background color that has a little opacity. Okay, now let's style this icon. I just come back, and inside this span tag I write class name, position absolute. For the top I give it 10, and the font size is XL, a cursor pointer. For the hover I gave it a text slate of 500. You can see that's over here, but we want that to be in the right corner. I just come back and write right 10. Okay, now let's style this layer. So for the div I just write a class name and give it a width of 25 rem and a height of 25 rem. Give it a background color of to do and give it a little border radius. You can see that we have changed the background color, and now we need to pass this text to our layer. Inside the layer components I write a class name, give it a padding tree, and receive this text from the to do component. Now inside this div I'm gonna have a heading one. For the title I give this heading a class name, text center, capitalized, and a font width bold, and a text of large, padding bottom 3. You can see that the heading is ready. Now down here we need to have a paragraph and print this text over here. For the styling I gave it a class name. We need to give it a text color, a font width, and a height of 20 rem, and overflow Y auto. Okay, now let's implement this close button. I just go back to the to do component, and inside this span tag I write on click set show text to be false. You can see if I click this button, this layer will be closed. Okay, now let's bring it back to false, and inside this more button I add an on click and set the show text to be true. Okay, now if I click this more button, this text will be printed over here. Alright, Now let's implement the delete functionality. I just go back to the to-do component and make a new function called the delete to-do, and we will receive an ID. So inside this, we need to write set to-do list, and we need to filter over every to-do inside it, get to-do, and check if the to-do.id is not equal to the ID that we received from the component. Now down here in the delete button, just write an onClick and pass the delete function to this, but you need to add an arrow function because you want to pass the ID and then pass this ID. I just write to-do.id. Alright. Now if I click the delete button, you can see that the to-do is deleted. Alright. Now let's add another text. Okay, now let's implement this completed button. I just go back to the to-do component and make a new function called completed. I receive the ID again, and inside that we need to write the set to-do list, and we need to map through this to-do list inside it. Okay, and down here we need to check if the to-do.id is equal to the ID that we received from the component. Then what we need to do is just return this object that contains all the to-do, and we need to change this completed to not to-do.completed. And what we need to do is just return this to-do. Now we need to add another onClick inside the completed icon and paste this and grab this ID. Now if I go to React Developer Tool and check for the component, you can see we have all the to-do listed in here. Okay, we don't have the completed variable inside our object, so I just go back to the to-do and add this completed variable to be false by default. Now we need to add a new to-do over here. You can see that we have received this completed variable. Now if I click this button, you can see it will be changed to true. It means that the text is completed. And if I click back, it will be false. Okay, now what we need to do, I just come back to this heading and change this class name. So I just delete this because we need to set a condition. I just wrap this with curly braces and temporary string, paste it over here, and inside that I just set a condition. I say if to-do that's completed is true, I want this line true. Otherwise, empty string. And also I want to have a text color of slate 400. Now if I click this button, you can see that the text has a line true and the text color will be a little dark. Now we need to sort this to-do list. So whenever we add a new to-do, we want that to be printed at the beginning. So I just go back, and in here I need to write a new variable called sorted to-do is equal to to-do list.sort. We will get A and B, and inside this I need to write new date, and we need to paste this b.time minus new date a.time. Alright, now I just copy this variable and change this to-do list with this sorted. You can see that the early to-do will be printed first. Alright, now let's implement this edit functionality. So I just go back, and inside this to-dos component I need to make a new use state hook. I'm gonna name that edit to-do and set edit to-do, and the initial value is gonna be null. Okay, now we need to pass this use state hook into to-do component and receive that inside to-do component, and down here we need to make a new function. I'm gonna call that edit to-do list, and we will receive this ID again. Inside it, we need to have a new variable, new to do, and we need to use a find method over this to-do list. And we need to check if the todo.id is equal to the id. So it will find a specific object that matches with the id that we have passed. Now we need to pass this new variable into set edit to do. Okay, I need to copy this function, and down here I make an onClick and pass this useState hook, and we need to pass this todo.id. Okay, now if I console log this edit to do, and you can see it is null by default, but if I click this button, you can see we will get this object that matches with the id that we have passed. Alright. Now inside the add to do function, we need to set a condition. We say if there is no object inside the edit to do, we want to print a new to do. But if there is an object inside the useState hook, we need to make this function and pass the text edit to do.id, edit to do.completed. And now up here, we need to make that function and pass this parameter, and inside it we need to map through all the to-do list, and we need to check if the todo.id is equal to id. Then we return this object contains id, text, completed, and we need to have a time with a new date. Otherwise we want to return this single to do. Okay, I need to return this to get rid of this error. Alright. Now we need to reassign this new to do inside this set to do list, and we need to set the edit to do back to null once we click that, and set text to empty string. Okay, now let's check if it's working or not. If I click this button and if I go to the React Developer tool, you can see we will have a new entry. So if I write something in the text area and click this add, you can see that my text has been edited. Alright. Now what I want to do is when I click this button, I want the text to be printed inside the text area. So I can see that what text I am gonna update. I come back to the component, and down here I need to define a new useState hook, and inside that I need to write if there is edit to do, I just write set text and assign this edit to do that text to it. Otherwise we want to set text to be an empty string, and this dependency will get this edit to do. Alright. Now if I click this button, you can see the text will be printed in the text area, and if I change something in it and click this button, you can see the text has been changed successfully. Alright. Now if I add a text with emoji, you can see that if I update the text, the emoji is still over here. So to close this, I just come back and again I write set show emoji to false. Now let's check. You can see the emoji will be closed. Alright. Now I can click this button to complete the to do. Alright. Now let's change the text inside the button. So when we want to update, the text should be update, otherwise we want that to be add. So I just come back, and down here I need to set a condition and write if there is an edit to do, I want to write update, otherwise I want it to be add. You can see if I click this button, the text will be changed to update. But if I update the text, it will come back to add. Alright. Now let's implement the single to do page. So when we click this more button, we want to show the specific to do text. So I just come back, and in here I need to make a new useState hook and call that show full text, set show full text, and the initial value is going to be an empty string. And down here we need to make a new function I'm gonna receive this ID, and inside that we need to make a new variable called the text, and we need to use the find method again and check if the todo.id is equal to the ID that we received from the function. Now I need to make a new onClick and pass this todo ID. Okay, I just get rid of this set show text and paste it inside this function. Now we need to reassign this text to our set show full text. Okay. Now we need to pass this useSet hook to our single component instead of this todo.text. Now if I click this more button, okay, we have an error. That is because we need to pass the text. Okay, I just come back and change this variable name to todo.text, and what we need to do is we need to write todo.text.text because we want to pass the text. Okay, now if I click this button, you can see that we have a single todo text over here. Alright, okay guys, that's it for this video. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you enjoyed watching this video, please make sure to give a subscribe to my channel and give a like to this video. See you in the next video.